What if I told you that some of the most powerful foods for supporting your immune system were trusted long before supplements, powders, and health trends existed? Today, many people look for quick fixes, but real immune support is usually built slowly through simple daily habits. For generations, people relied on foods like garlic, turmeric, and fermented foods because they believed these everyday staples helped support strength and resilience. Modern research now suggests some of these same foods may support immune function, help the body manage stress, and promote overall wellness. In this video, you will discover 7 ancient foods that have stood the test of time, including one that was used in ancient Rome and another that may already be in your kitchen today. First, one is raw honey. Raw honey is one of those foods that feels almost too simple to take seriously. It's sweet, familiar, and easy to overlook. But when you step back, it's actually one of the most complex natural foods you can put into your body. It's made by bees from flower nectar, and when it's left unfiltered and unheated, it carries enzymes, trace minerals, and plant compounds that don't survive heavy processing. Long before sugar became a household staple, honey held a very different place in daily life. In ancient Egypt, it was valued so highly that it was sometimes offered in sacred rituals and even placed in tombs. The Greeks used it as a source of strength for athletes, and in traditional Ayurveda, it was often used to carry other herbs deeper into the body. Across these cultures, honey wasn't just a sweetener. It was something people respected. Now today, research is starting to catch up with what many of these traditions seem to understand through experience. Studies suggest that raw honey contains antioxidants, which may support the body's ability to handle everyday stress. It also has natural compounds that research indicates may help create an environment that's less friendly to unwanted microbes. That doesn't make it a miracle solution, but it does show that there's more going on beneath the surface than just sweetness. One of the key reasons raw honey stands out is because of its enzymes. These are tiny helpers that support natural processes in your body. When honey is heated or heavily filtered, many of these enzymes are reduced or lost. That's why the form matters. What you choose on the shelf can make a real difference. If you want to bring this into your routine, the simplest way is often the best. A small spoonful of raw, unfiltered honey in the morning, or stirred gently into warm tea, not boiling hot, can be a steady, easy habit. The goal isn't to overdo it. It's to use it consistently, in a way your body can recognize over time. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. Raw honey isn't recommended for infants under 1-year-old. And if you're adding it to drinks, try to avoid very high heat, since that can break down some of the natural compounds that make it unique in the first place. So why did something this valuable fade into the background? In many ways, it came down to convenience and cost. Processed sugar became cheaper, easier to produce, and easier to store in large quantities. Over time, honey shifted from being a daily staple to more of an occasional choice. And in that shift, a lot of its deeper value was simply forgotten. But now, people are starting to look back. Not because it's trendy, but because it's familiar in a deeper way. It's something the body seems to understand. Think of raw honey as sunlight stored in a jar. It carries the essence of countless flowers, gathered slowly and with purpose. It doesn't rush. It doesn't try to overpower. It simply supports, in a quiet, steady way that builds over time. Second is garlic, the humble protector. Garlic is one of those foods that almost everyone recognizes, but not everyone truly appreciates. It's a small pungent bulb, sharp in smell and bold in flavor. Beneath that intensity, though, garlic carries a unique set of natural sulfur compounds that give it much of its strength. When you cut into it, you can smell that power immediately. It's not subtle, and it was never meant to be. If you go back through history, garlic shows up again and again in places where people needed endurance and resilience. Ancient Egyptian workers were given garlic to help sustain their strength during long days of labor. Roman soldiers carried it as part of their daily rations. In traditional Chinese practices, it was used regularly as part of everyday meals, not as something special, but as something dependable. These traditions weren't based on lab results. They were based on observation. People noticed that when garlic was part of life, something felt stronger, more balanced, more steady. Today, research is beginning to explain some of what those cultures experienced. Studies suggest that garlic contains a compound called allicin, which forms when garlic is crushed or chopped. Research indicates that allicin and related compounds may support the body's natural immune response and help maintain overall resilience. Again, this isn't about quick fixes. It's about steady support that builds over time. What makes garlic especially interesting is that it changes when you prepare it. When a garlic clove is whole, those beneficial compounds are not fully active. But once you crush or chop it, a chemical reaction begins. That's when a lacin forms. And if you let it sit for a few minutes before cooking or eating, you give that process time to develop more fully. A simple way to use garlic is to crush a clove, let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then add it to your food. You can mix it into warm dishes, salad dressings, or even spread a small amount on toast with a bit of olive oil. It doesn't need to be complicated. The key is consistency, not quantity. Of course, garlic isn't for everyone in large amounts. Its strength can be intense, especially if you're not used to it. Some people may find it irritating to the stomach if taken in excess. And if you're on certain medications, especially blood-thinning ones, it's worth having a quick conversation with your healthcare provider before increasing your intake significantly. So why did something this powerful become less central in modern diets? In many ways, it comes down to convenience and preference. Garlic has a strong smell that lingers. It doesn't always fit neatly into processed, ready-made foods. As diets shifted toward convenience and uniform flavors, garlic became more of an optional ingredient rather than a daily staple. But now, more people are starting to bring it back, not because it's new, but because it works quietly in the background. It doesn't try to impress. It simply supports. Think of garlic as a small spark inside your system. It doesn't overwhelm or take over. It simply wakes things up, gently encouraging your body to stay alert, responsive, and ready. Third is turmeric, the golden root of balance. Turmeric is one of those ingredients you've probably seen many times, but maybe never really paused to think about. It's a bright yellow root, often ground into a deep golden powder with a warm, slightly earthy flavor. At first glance, it seems like just another spice sitting quietly on a shelf. But when you look a little closer, you realize it carries a long history of use that goes far beyond the kitchen. For thousands of years, turmeric has been a central part of traditional practices in India, especially within Ayurveda. It wasn't treated as something special or occasional. It was part of daily life. It was added to meals, mixed into warm drinks, and used consistently as a way to support overall balance in the body. In many households, turmeric wasn't something you reached for when something felt off. It was something you used so things stayed steady in the first place. What's interesting is how that traditional use is now being explored through modern research. Studies suggest that turmeric contains a compound called curcumin, which has been studied for its role in supporting the body's natural response to inflammation and overall immune function. Research indicates that curcumin may help the body maintain balance when it's under everyday stress, whether that's from environment, lifestyle, or simply the wear and tear of daily life. But here's something many people don't realize. Turmeric on its own isn't easily absorbed by the body. It passes through without fully delivering its potential benefits. That's where black pepper comes in. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine, which helps the body absorb curcumin more effectively. When you combine the two, you create a much more supportive pairing. Healthy fats also play a role here. Since curcumin is fat-soluble, meaning it dissolves in fat, pairing turmeric with something like olive oil, coconut oil, or even whole milk can help your body use it more efficiently. It's a simple adjustment, but it makes a meaningful difference. If you're looking for a practical way to bring turmeric into your routine, one of the easiest methods is to add it to warm foods or drinks. You might stir a small amount into soups, stews, or even a warm cup of milk with a pinch of black pepper and a bit of honey. It doesn't have to be complicated. The key is to use it regularly in a way that feels natural and sustainable. As with anything, moderation matters. Turmeric is generally well tolerated in culinary amounts, but higher intakes may not be suitable for everyone. If you're pregnant, dealing with certain health conditions, or taking medications, especially those related to blood or digestion, it's a good idea to check in with your healthcare provider before making significant changes. So why did turmeric, with all this history, end up being overlooked? Part of it comes down to perception. In many modern kitchens, turmeric was reduced to just a spice. Something used for color or flavor, but not given much deeper thought. At the same time, faster-acting solutions and pharmaceuticals took center stage, and slower, supportive approaches like this were pushed to the side. But now there's a shift happening. People are starting to reconnect with these traditional practices, not out of nostalgia, but out of curiosity and a desire for something steady and grounded. Think of turmeric as a slow-burning fire within your body. it doesn't flare up quickly or demand attention. Instead, it works quietly in the background, helping to maintain warmth, balance, and stability over time. Fourth is fermented foods. The living tradition. Fermented foods are a little different from everything else we've talked about so far. They're not just ingredients. They're alive in a way most modern foods are not. When you hear names like sauerkraut, kefir, yogurt, or traditional pickles, what you're really looking at are foods that have been transformed through natural fermentation. This process allows beneficial bacteria to grow, creating a completely different kind of nourishment than what you started with. At first, fermentation wasn't about health. It was about survival. Before refrigeration existed, people needed a way to preserve food so it wouldn't spoil. Across Europe, cabbage was turned into sauerkraut. In parts of the Middle East and Eastern Europe, milk was fermented into kefir or yogurt. In Asia, vegetables and grains were fermented into a wide variety of staples. Over time, people began to notice something beyond preservation. These foods seemed to support digestion, energy, and overall well-being in a steady, reliable way. Today, modern research is beginning to explore what those traditions were pointing toward. Studies suggest that your gut plays a central role in your immune system. In fact, a large portion of your immune activity is connected to what's happening in your digestive tract. The beneficial bacteria found in fermented foods may support a more balanced gut environment, which in turn may help your body respond more effectively to everyday challenges. What makes this powerful is that it's not about adding something foreign to your body. It's about supporting an ecosystem that already exists within you. Your gut is home to trillions of microorganisms, and the balance of that environment matters more than most people realize. If you're new to fermented foods, the best approach is to start small. A spoonful of sauerkraut with a meal, a small glass of kefir, or a serving of yogurt with live cultures can be enough to begin. There's no need to rush or overdo it. In fact, going too fast can feel overwhelming for your system. Let your body adjust gradually. Quality matters here as well. Not all fermented foods are created the same. Many store-bought options are pasteurized, which can reduce or eliminate the beneficial bacteria. Looking for traditionally prepared, unpasteurized versions when possible can make a difference. As with anything, it's worth paying attention to how your body responds. Some people may be more sensitive, especially in the beginning. And if you have specific digestive conditions or concerns, it's a good idea to check with your healthcare provider before making big changes. So why did these foods, once a daily staple, become less common? In many ways, it was the rise of industrial food systems. Refrigeration, preservatives, and mass production made it easier to store and transport food without fermentation. Over time, the need for these traditional methods faded, and with it, the everyday presence of these foods. But now, people are starting to rediscover them. Not because they're new, but because they offer something modern food often lacks. They bring back a sense of balance that feels natural rather than forced. Think of fermented foods as tending a garden inside your body. You're not controlling every detail. You're simply creating the right conditions for something healthy to grow, quietly and steadily, over time. Before we move on, take a second and think about what we've covered so far. Out of these foods, how many are already part of your routine, even in a small way? Sometimes we realize we're closer to these habits than we thought. And other times we see simple opportunities to bring something back in. If you're finding value in this kind of grounded, no-hype approach to natural health, go ahead and like the video. It helps more than you might think, and it lets me know this kind of content is worth continuing. And if you want more of this, simple, practical ideas around natural living, traditional wisdom, and self-reliance, consider subscribing. That way you won't miss what's coming next. We've still got a few more foods to go, and some of them might surprise you in how simple and how overlooked they really are. Fifth is bone broth, the original strength builder. Bone broth is one of those foods that doesn't try to impress you at first glance. It's simple, often overlooked, and takes time to make. But beneath that simplicity is a depth that many modern foods just don't carry anymore. At its core, bone broth is made by slowly simmering bones and connective tissue over many hours, sometimes even a full day, allowing nutrients to gently release into the liquid. Long before it became a trend, bone broth was a staple in kitchens around the world. In many cultures, nothing went to waste. After preparing a meal, bones were saved and simmered into broth. It was given to those who needed extra nourishment, like the elderly, children, or anyone recovering from physical strain. It wasn't labeled as special. It was simply understood as something that helped support the body when it needed it most. That understanding is now being revisited through modern research. Studies suggest that bone broth contains collagen, along with amino acids like glycine and proline, which may support the body's natural repair processes. It also provides minerals in forms that are easier for the body to use. Research indicates that these elements may contribute to overall resilience, helping the body maintain strength over time. What makes bone broth unique isn't just what's in it, but how it's made. The long, slow cooking process is what allows these compounds to break down and become available. This isn't something you can rush. It's a return to a slower way of preparing food, where time becomes part of the nourishment. If you want to try it for yourself, the process is straightforward. Take quality bones, ideally from well-sourced animals, add water, a splash of vinegar, and let it simmer gently for many hours. The vinegar helps draw out minerals from the bones, and the slow heat does the rest. You can sip it on its own, or use it as a base for soups and stews. It doesn't need to be complicated. Quality does matter here. The source of the bones can influence what ends up in your broth, so choosing well-raised or responsibly sourced ingredients is worth considering. And while bone broth is generally well tolerated, it's always a good idea to introduce any new food gradually and see how your body responds. So why did something so practical fall out of everyday use? The answer is speed. As life became faster, cooking methods changed. Instant soups, packaged broths, and convenience foods replaced slow, traditional preparation. The idea of letting something simmer for hours didn't fit into modern schedules. And over time, the habit simply faded. But now, more people are starting to bring it back, not because it's complicated, but because it offers something steady and grounding. It reminds us that not all nourishment comes quickly. Some of the most supportive things take time. Think of bone broth as a foundation. It's not flashy or immediate. It doesn't stand out on its own, but it quietly supports everything else, holding things together in a way you may not notice right away, but would miss if it were gone. Sixth is ginger, the warming mover. Ginger is one of those roots you can recognize the moment you taste it. It's sharp, warm, and slightly spicy, with a kind of heat that doesn't overwhelm but lingers just enough to be noticed. It's been used for centuries in kitchens around the world, but its role has always gone beyond flavor. Beneath that familiar taste is a root that has long been valued for how it supports the body in subtle, steady ways. In traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic practices, ginger was often used as a daily support for digestion and overall vitality. It was added to meals, brewed into teas, and used in simple preparations that became part of everyday life. People didn't wait until something felt off. They used ginger consistently, almost like a quiet companion to their meals, helping the body stay balanced and responsive. Now, modern research is beginning to explore what those traditions were built on. Studies suggest that ginger contains natural compounds like gingerol, which may support the body's response to inflammation and help maintain a healthy immune function. Research indicates that ginger may also support digestion and circulation, both of which play a role in how the body handles daily stress and maintains energy. What makes ginger especially interesting is how it interacts with warmth. It's often described as a warming food, and that's not just a figure of speech. When you consume it, you can feel that gentle heat spread through your system. It's not aggressive. It's more like a steady nudge, encouraging movement and flow where things might feel stuck or sluggish. If you're looking to bring ginger into your routine, fresh is often the best place to start. Fresh ginger root tends to be more vibrant and potent than highly processed forms. A simple way to use it is to slice or grate a small piece and steep it in hot water for a few minutes to make a tea. You can add a bit of honey or lemon if you like, but even on its own, it has a clean, grounding quality. You can also add it to meals. Stir-fries, soups, or even simple dishes can benefit from a small amount of fresh ginger. Again, it doesn't need to be complicated. The goal is to use it regularly, in ways that feel natural and easy to maintain. As with anything, moderation matters. Ginger is generally well tolerated in normal food amounts, but larger quantities may not be suitable for everyone. If you're pregnant, managing certain conditions, or taking medications that affect blood or digestion, it's a good idea to check in with your healthcare provider before increasing your intake significantly. So why did ginger, with all its history, become something we often overlook? In many modern diets, ginger was reduced to a flavoring, something added occasionally for taste rather than something valued for its deeper role. As convenience foods became more common, ingredients like ginger lost their place as daily staples and became optional extras. But that's starting to change. People are beginning to see ginger not just as a spice, but as a simple, functional food that fits easily into daily life. Think of ginger as a gentle wave moving through your system. It doesn't force anything. It simply encourages flow, helping things stay in motion in a calm, steady way that supports you over time. And the last is dark leafy greens, the forgotten daily fuel. Dark leafy greens are some of the most common foods on this list, and at the same time, some of the most overlooked. We're talking about things like kale, collards, mustard greens, dandelion greens, and other traditional varieties that have been part of human diets for generations. They're not flashy. They're not expensive. But they carry a level of nourishment that's hard to match. What makes these greens stand out is their density. They pack a wide range of vitamins, minerals, and plant compounds into a small amount of food. They're rich in things your body uses every day, often without you even noticing. And unlike many modern foods, they don't rely on processing or added ingredients to be effective. They come as they are, simple and complete. Historically, these greens were a regular part of daily life. In many parts of the world, people didn't go to a store to find them. They grew them in small gardens or foraged them from the land around them. Dandelion greens, for example, were once seen as a valuable source of nourishment, not as a weed. Collards and mustard greens were staples in traditional cooking, often prepared slowly and eaten consistently. There was no trend around them, no special label. They were just food, trusted because they were always there and always worked. Now, modern research is helping us understand why these greens were so valued. Studies suggest that dark leafy greens are rich in vitamins like A, C, and K, along with minerals such as calcium and magnesium. They also contain plant compounds that may support the body's natural defenses and help maintain overall balance. Research indicates that regularly including these kinds of foods may support long-term health in a steady, foundational way. What's important here is variety. Different greens offer slightly different benefits. Some are more bitter, some are milder, and each brings its own set of nutrients. Rotating between them, instead of relying on just one, can help create a more balanced intake over time. If you're looking for a simple way to bring more of these into your routine, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can lightly sauté them with olive oil and garlic, add them to soups, or mix them into meals you're already making. Even a small serving each day can make a difference when it's done consistently. The taste can take some getting used to, especially if you're not familiar with the natural bitterness of certain greens. But that bitterness is part of what makes them valuable. It signals the presence of compounds that your body can use in meaningful ways. Over time, your palate often adjusts, and what once felt strong begins to feel normal. As always, it's worth paying attention to how your body responds. Most dark leafy greens are safe in normal food amounts, but if you're managing specific conditions, especially those related to digestion or certain medications, it's a good idea to check in with your healthcare provider before making major changes. So why did these greens, once a daily staple, start to disappear from so many plates? The answer is simple: convenience. As processed foods became more available, fresh greens, especially the more bitter varieties, were pushed aside. They required preparation, time, and a willingness to accept flavors that weren't always sweet or mild. Over time, they became less common, not because they lost their value, but because they didn't fit into a faster way of eating. But now, more people are starting to bring them back, not as a trend, but as a return to something steady and reliable. Think of dark leafy greens as the roots of a tree. They don't draw attention to themselves, but they provide the stability and nourishment that everything else depends on. Quiet, grounding, and essential. There is no single superfood that changes everything overnight. What works is consistency. Small habits like honey, garlic, turmeric, ginger, greens, broth, and fermented foods quietly add up over time. Instead of trying to change everything at once, pick one or two things and keep it simple. Real strength comes from returning to the basics and sticking with them. If this helped, like the video, subscribe for more grounded content, and share it with someone who wants a simpler approach to health. See you in the next one. Before you try any of these foods in a new or more consistent way, it's worth remembering that they've traditionally been used to support general wellness, not as quick fixes or one-size-fits-all solutions. Everyone's body is different. What feels supportive and easy for one person may feel different for someone else. That's why it helps to pay attention as you go, especially when adding something new into your routine. If you have any existing health conditions, sensitivities, or if you're taking medications, It's a good idea to check in with your healthcare provider before making significant changes. The same goes if you're pregnant or navigating a specific dietary need. In most cases, starting small and observing how your body responds is the simplest and safest approach.